हाय फ्रेंड्स, दिस इज़ सी अर्षित अग्रवाल। होप आप सब अच्छे होंगे, मैं भी अच्छा हूँ। टुडे वी विल डिस्कस अबाउट सम क्लॉजेज विच आर चेंजेस इन द कारो रिपोर्टिंग फ्रेमवर्क कारो 2020. ओके, फर्स्ट change is about details of tangible and intangible assets. Now we have to see that whether the records which have been maintained by the company display the complete particulars on detail of quantity and situation of the tangible and intangible assets or not, whether physical verification has been conducted by the organization or not, whether the title deed of the immovable property are in the name of the organization or not, whether the revaluation has been done by the company of its PPE or intangible assets during the year, and if yes, in case of change in valuations upon the revaluation, they have to specify the amount of change. If the amount of change is 10% or more in aggregate of net carrying value of each class of PPE, then they have to particularly disclose it in the CARO. And new clauses inserted. Clause number 8. Clause 8, which talks about reporting on undisclosed income, which requires the auditor to report whether previously unrecorded income or undisclosed income has been surrendered or disclosed by the organization or not during the year in the tax assessment under the Income Tax Act 1961 has been properly recorded or not. This basically pertains to undisclosed income which the organization is having, and whether they have previously having undisclosed income which they have disclosed in the current year or not. Next clause we have clause 14, which is reporting on internal audit. This is also a new clause which has been added in the CARO 2020, which talks about auditor required to report whether the company has an internal audit system or not, which is commensurable with the size and nature of the business. Reports of the internal auditor for the period under audit were considered by the statutory audit or not. Then we have another clause which is clause 17, which talks about reporting on cash losses, which requires the auditor to report whether the company has incurred cash losses in the financial year and in the immediately preceding financial year or not, and if so, the amount of that particular cash losses is required to be disclosed by the auditor in the CARO 2020. Next clause talks about clause 18, reporting on auditor's resignation, which requires the auditor to report on resignation of the statutory auditor during the year, whether any statutory auditor of the organization has resigned during the year. If yes, they have to report it particularly in this clause, whether the auditor has taken into consideration issues, objections, or any concerns which has been raised by the outgoing auditor or not. That particularly auditor's resignation is pertaining to clause number 18 of the CARO 2020, and auditor has to report it accordingly. Next clause we talk about clause 19. Clause 19, which talks about reporting on financial position. Which requires the auditor report whether material uncertainty exists or not. Disclosure is required that auditor is the opinion that company is capable of meeting its financial obligations which are being existing on the balance sheet, whether they fall due within a period of 1 year from the balance sheet or not. This basically pertains about the going concern concept of the organization, that whether the organization has financial capabilities or not, whether they are having any sort of obligation which will require or which will force the organization to materially curtail their scale of operations in the normal course of business or not. So this clause basically reports about the financial position of the organization. Okay, then the next clause we are having clause 20, which talks about reporting on CSR compliance, which requires the auditor to report whether the unspent CSR amount has been transferred to a fund which is specified in Schedule 7, where no project has been carried out or assigned. And another thing is whether the amount of CSR has been transferred to the specified designated bank account related to any ongoing project. There are many circumstances when organization is allocating a certain amount of CSR to a particular project, and for which they are maintaining a specified designated bank account for the same. So auditor has to check that whether the particular amount has been transferred to the specified designated bank account or not. So this clause was reporting on CSR compliance pertaining to clause 20 of the CARO 2020. So these are basically just the new clauses which has been added in the Caro 2020, and I thought that we can have a discussion on that and we can revise on that. So yeah, please let me know, do in the comment section, that whether you find it useful or not, and what next topic do you want me to revise or to elaborate or explain. Thanks a lot, and keep smiling, spread positive vibes, and just keep learning. Bye.